morning. Welcome once more to the Aurum podcast, where we discuss everything regarding to build winning teams. I'm your host. My name is Anthony Kuria, and I'm so glad that you could be able to join with us. The Aurum podcast is hosted by Aurum Consultants, a human resource and risk advisory company, and our main mandate is to help businesses build winning teams. With us today is the lead consultant here at Aurum Consultants, Madam Zipporah Kuria. Welcome, Zippy.
Thank you, Anthony, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. And also with us is Madam Martha Tuku, a HR specialist and a senior HR executive with a leading company here in Kenya. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you, Anthony, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our podcast this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Zippy. Now, this month, we are discussing transitions. Transitions. And as you all know, transitions are things that are part of life. We transition from morning, wake up, transition from sleep to waking up to going to work. Then you work and work and work. And then in the evening, you transition from work, you go back to your home. So you transition from the workplace to your home. And sometimes you even transition to sleep. Yeah, not sometimes, all the times. And then when it is the weekend, like now, you transition from weekday to weekend. So transitions are part of everyday life. Now, there is what we call the workplace transitions, where we've got to handle changes in the workplace. It could be changes as you're joining the workplace, changes as you're confirmed. Now you're no longer on probation. Then we proceed from workplace as you keep going in the workplace transitions come. You move posts. Some people move the places where they work in, locations. As I'm transitioned upwards, the responsibilities change. So this is a very relevant topic that we want to discuss today. So handling workplace transitions, and in the workplace, ladies, the transitions some can be good, some can be tough, some can be traumatic. And the reason why we are discussing this topic today is to see how do we make the transitions easier, even as we do so. And as we all know, HR is normally at the nerve center of transitions. So, Madam Zippy, let me start with you. When we think about all these things, sometimes you wonder, is there strategy in handling transitions? So the first question now that comes to my mind that would like us to discuss is, what strategies would we use to empower people to embrace change during transitions?
Thank you, Anthony, for that question. When I'm thinking about this, and like I keep on saying, change is inevitable, whether it happens today, whether it's tomorrow, whether the day after. When you're handling life, change will come. And some changes are good changes. Some changes are not very good changes. They are difficult changes. They are difficult transitions that we have to make in life. And I'm just thinking about the time when I was getting married. It was a good transition from being single to getting married. Yet there was anxiety. There was this change that is happening in my life, that is a permanent change in my life, and there's anxiety. And when we are looking at workplace transitions, that anxiety, whatever kind of transition it is, whether it's a promotion, whether it's a termination, you're exiting the organization, there are emotions that come with it. And most of the time, it could be a very challenging time. And I think we want to focus more on transitions that are a bit more challenging, that would affect someone, and they would affect someone in a negative way if not handled properly. And when I'm looking at this from a place of leadership, if I'm a leader, I need to prepare for change, whether it's a change that is coming because of innovation, whether it's a change because there's enthusiasm and we are trying to bring in new ideas and we are trying to implement new strategies. I need to have a place where I'm able to plan for the changes that are likely to happen within the organization. When I look at the way the workplace is changing, with innovation, with working in different spaces where people are having to even work from home, I mean, the workplace is changing in a very dynamic way. And the workplace is no longer a place where we go to work, but it's a place now where, work has to happen, whether it's at home, whether it's at a site, but wherever you are sitting to actually do your work. So when you're starting to look at transitions, it's important for me as a leader to be at that place of planning, preparing for it. Because when we plan and when we prepare, then it becomes easier to start making those transitions. It becomes easier for people to accept their transitions that are coming. And this is how the transition is likely to affect you. I'm trying to look at a scenario where probably this transition is going to affect people who will lose their jobs. How do we prepare them for this transition? Do we just wake up in the morning and tell them you don't have a job anymore? And they have to figure out what to do with their life. Or do we walk the journey with them because we know probably because we are bringing in innovation, we are bringing in technology, it's likely to affect some departments. So it's not catching us by surprise. So I think it's important for us as leaders to start preparing psychologically and otherwise. We need to start looking at there are other opportunities within the organization where they can be able to work. If that's not a possibility, then how are these transitions going to affect them? How are these changes happening within the organization are going to affect them? I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was explaining to me, a transition she had to go through in our organization that was a very traumatizing transition. Where she did in the organization for a very long time, brought in innovation, started programs that were successfully running, and one day the boss wakes up and says, "We don't need you anymore." Just like that, a bomb is dropped, and you're told, "Off you go." And that kind of a transition can be very traumatic. So some of the strategies I believe we can be able to use is plan and plan very well, and be able to engage the people who are going to be affected by these transitions, because we don't wake up at the transitions. It's something that we plan for. I would say also it's important when we are doing these transitions and we are communicating to the team members. As a leader, I need to believe in the change that is happening within the organization. And if I have decided this is a transition that needs to happen within the organization, then I need to genuinely believe that and genuinely support that transition that needs to happen. But there are people who are getting affected. So how do we bring them on board? How do we carry them along so that this transition happens in a way that is beneficial to them as individual and also to the business? Remember, when people leave an organization, they are ambassadors for your organization. So if the transition does not happen in a good way, what happens? Then they might end up becoming, the negative force for you at the marketplace. But if the transition happens in a humane way, in a way that is encouraging, is in a way that is motivating, then they are able to continue being your ambassadors out there in the marketplace. I think it's also important for us as leaders to understand that transitions can be emotional. There's an emotional aspect to it. And that emotion can be very traumatizing for me, because I'm thinking, I have children, I have school fees I need to pay, I have a family, they are dependents. How is this transition going to affect me? So there's an emotional aspect of it. And how do we deal with those emotions? Maybe someone who has worked for the organization for the last 40 years and they need to retire. Can you imagine the emotion attached to it? This is where I have known as my second home, where I go every day. And all of a sudden, my job is coming to an end. How do we help that person transition and transition in a way that is affecting them in a positive way, that they will be able to continue with their livelihood even after exiting the organization? So it's important for us to acknowledge there's an emotional attachment to transitions that happen, whether it's exiting, whether it's a promotion, whether it's a relocation to a totally different country. How is it going to affect this family? If as an employer, I'm going to transition someone to move from Kenya to go and work, in Tanzania or in Sudan or wherever, are we factoring in, what effect is it going to have on them, on their family, on their children? Are we being forthright and giving all the information they need? I remember a while back, someone contacting me and telling me, I'm being asked to go and set up the business in another 3 different countries and oversee that. yet my salary is not being reviewed. I'm not being given clear directives in terms of my benefits. And I'm confused because I don't know whether to agree to this. I don't know whether to say no, because if I say no, I lose my job. If I agree, then I end up taking a raw deal. So it's important for us to have all these conversations with employees, to come up forthright and put the cards on the table and be able to have constructive conversations during workplace transitions. It's important for us to engage in a professional manner. If people who are retiring, for instance, are we considering, the psychological aspect of it? Are we considering bringing in people who are able to talk through, talk them through the transition, probably help them with counseling, probably help them with their financial planning? I always say, as an employee, I don't want someone to work for me for 30, 40 years, and a year down the line, I meet them and they're so beaten, they can't manage life anymore. So it's important for us to look at it from many different perspectives and see, if I was in the shoes of this person, how will I be feeling about this transition? How will I be feeling about how this transition is being communicated to me? And I think if we look at it from that perspective, we'll be able to do a good job in terms of how we transition our people out of the workplace.
Very good. There you have really, in a nutshell, discussed how to handle these transitions. Whether, as you've described, it's posting somebody outside the country, or it could be relocation, or it could be redundancy, and all those kind of things that inevitably come with workplace transitions. Martha, from your perspective, what strategies do you think would help empower people to embrace change during these transitions?
There is so many different transitions that happen in an organization. And as she has emphasized, planning is one of them, and communication is the other. For every kind of transition, those two must take place for it
Mm,
to be a successful transition. And then when it involves exiting of staff, the transition then should include an empathetic angle, because people are human beings, and it's not good just to let them know, like, in NGOs, we know, oh, contracts end in 30th, on 30th of September. It's not good to assume that
mm,
your staff are aware that their contracts are ending. So always take an empathetic role. It's
yes.
okay to keep advising. And that's why you have the HR department to help you with the staffing issue of keep, HR will not tire to talk, because they understand the staff, and the staff, when they are stressed, is the HR they call. So
Mm,
this continuous feedback is so important, and you getting feedback from down. What are they saying? What are people saying? That
mm,
information is so important for you, to help you even in your communication along the line. If you look at a transition, like some of the transitions that happen at workplace that affect the organization itself, e.g., mergers,
mm-hmm.
downsizing, kwanza, when you're merging, you have two organizations merging. These two
Mm,
organizations, each organization has their staff, and now they are becoming one. Cultures different, everything different, and that in itself, it's a place to bring a lot of anxiety, especially to the staff.
mm,
So a lot of planning is important, a lot of information for staff.
mm,
At times there are some people who, let's say, walk by faith, but there are some who
mm,
wants to see the end before the beginning starts. Yeah,
yes.
and those are the most. Very few walk by faith. So it's
Mm,
good to even kind of have an idea of how this game plan is going to play. And this comes from discussions at the top, the top engagements and all.
yes.
And for me, I would say that every kind of transition of this kind and the magnitude, if it's downsizing, if it's merging, if it's diversification, or there are times you find like service industry, the product they have been selling is not working anymore, so they are
Mm.
venturing into a new product, and maybe the staff you have do not have the skill to own a new
Mm.
project. You need to kind of communicate from the word go. Let it not be a surprise. And then this transition should not be tomorrow, that tomorrow we are transiting. So
Mm.
if COVID hits, then it's important to come up with facts and figures and lay those facts and figures on the table with everyone and get feedback. The other thing I find very supportive is that you can identify your supporters, even in the staff, because these ones you're going to use them. There's a word that in HR, but I've forgotten. You're going to use them as your marketers to this plan that you have. You get?
Mm.
So let them bring you feedback from the ground, and make sure at all times you have those people. They are so key, because then they first of all, they are with you, so they are running with the vision and whatever it is doing. The other thing
Mm.
you need to identify is who are the resistors of this change,
Mm.
because this means that you have these are the enemies of the change that is taking place.
Yes.
In school, we used to learn uh, about change, and there was always a question. In all my management courses, there was a question of resistance to change,
Mm.
and we are supposed to name them. So
Uh-huh.
it means that everyone knows there will be resistance to change, even in your own house, ZP. If you have been eating this kind of bread with this margarine, and you go to
Mm-hmm.
the market, you find a new one, and because you are thinking it's healthy, you have changed it,
Mm-hmm.
then it's only you who is for that margarine. You'll go and find your family members, they feel nothing. You brought change without consulting, and you'll get resistance. You might find yourself eating that margarine by yourself. So change is always at every level. The most important thing is to plan, B, communicate, communicate, communicate. See, support, identify your supporters and work with them to
Mm.
be able to sell your goals to the resistors. And then there are some things that you don't know it all. And that's why there are professionals out there. Engage a
Yes.
professional, especially for
Mm.
these workplace changes of
Yes.
mergers, downsizing, and blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
You need consultants, you need Oram to come in and kind of bring in a new perspective than what you know. So, you have to accept that you don't know it all. So, you need to research, talk to people who have gone through this before and how they did it. And once you do that and you research, and then you get feedback from your staff, the people who will be affected, and
Mm.
as feedback comes, make some action points
Yes.
for communication for that feedback. Because if people raise things and you brush them off, and then you still continue implementing the transition, then what that means is that you don't care. Uh,
Mm.
so it's always good to have action points based on the feedback that you got from ground. And I think when you put all this together and mostly think through before you even communicate, and as I said, get advice, and then even look for professionals to come and help you implement, is better to pay that extra than to
Mm.
fail in a transition in your organization. I hope I've touched a few things, and maybe I can let ZP or Tony add more. Thank you.
And maybe just Mother to add quickly, I'm just looking at transitions again where employees probably have to lose their jobs. And I think sometimes we create an environment where employees feel settled and comfortable. And it's like, you are here for keeps. No one tells you this contract could end anytime.
True.
So we aid in helping them become too comfortable. Then when it comes time to transition, we it's like, a bomb that is dropped. And I
Mm,
think perhaps we need, when we're engaging people, we need to be very clear. Transitions will happen, along the way. And it could be in a year's time, it could be in 2 years' time. While we want you to work for long, it's good for people to always be on their toes. You're not sitting too pretty, feeling so comfortable, and one day things change and you're wondering, where do I start? I like in the NGO sector, where people are given, annual renewal contracts based on projects. And at any given time, this project will come to an end and I have to start looking for another opportunity. And you will find this employee is here, but they know this contract could end. So even as it's coming to an end, it's not a complete surprise to them. They had anticipated it along the way. And I think the challenge comes in when someone has been here for so long, there has not been any indication whatsoever that this job could come to an end, and all of a sudden the job comes to an end. And I think that can be very devastating. So it's important as business people to also think, how do we keep people on their toes for them to know, yes, you can grow within this organization, but it's also a possibility you could exit. And if you exit, what plans do you have as an employee? We need to teach our people in terms of financial management. How are they managing their finances? Are they able to live within their salary, their savings for at least 6 months if they were to exit their employment? Because a lot of times we don't prepare them and we live hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck. And when it comes to exit, then these people are completely devastated. So I think we have a bigger responsibility as employers in this front.
mm. Indeed, ladies, our time is really going, and that was just an introduction, and I'm realizing this topic of transition can really be very interesting. When Martha used the example of a lady going to the supermarket to shift margarine, and she decides an avocado is a better margarine naturally than Blue Band and whatever, and brings and says, now we'll be toasting bread with avocado. And everybody else is wondering, where did you get that? You became a health, you became a health freak just entering and leaving the supermarket. Now, these kind of changes, as you are describing, are things that have now become commonplace. Zippy was talking about people becoming comfortable. That was more probably in the 70s and 80s and probably even 90s when people like Martha described that last week. I think it was last week when Martha was describing a certain boss who worked for this organization for so long that when his time came to retire, his mind refused to accept the idea that you are retiring. And yet you have hit the mandatory age of retirement. Now, I don't think in the current 21st century workplace there is room for that kind of thing. The technology changes are so dynamic, and the people who are entering the workplace now are also so dynamic. To them, staying for one place like for 10 years is like ultrafying. Unaozea hapo, they're so dynamic. For them, even they can just decide I'm leaving this job to do something else simply because it is not exciting enough. I mean, try telling that to my mother that you're leaving a job because it's not exciting enough. She will call a psychic on you to see whether you're fine. And to you, our listeners and our viewers, as you listen, you probably have somebody you're wondering that person needs a psychic, or you are a business person, you're an entrepreneur, and you're thinking, I'm going through transitions, I don't know how to handle things. Kindly give us a call, call in or send in a WhatsApp. We are live, and you can be able to send your messages, and we'll be able to handle them and tackle them as we go. Now, our time is really good. I can see we are almost 25 minutes past the hour, and we need to finish within the next 10 minutes. So hapa ni vile wanasemanga comments fupi fupi. So Zippy, let me ask you, how do you handle unwelcome workplace transitions in a nutshell?
Wow. Unwelcome workplace transitions can be either way, can be either the employer terminating an employee, and it's not a welcome transition that I anticipated, or it could be the employee resigning. Whichever way, it's a very uncomfortable kind of transition. And it's important for us to consider, um, how is this going to affect the employer if I exit? I've seen situations where an employee wakes up, resigns, doesn't give any notice. And it's interesting because with the younger generation, this is becoming more common. Before,
Yes.
things were never like that. It's now very common for someone to just wake up and tell you, I will not be coming to work in another 3 days. So jipange as an employer. So of
Yes.
course that is an unwelcome kind of transition. So as an employer, what do I need to do? Because a lot of times we are finding ourselves in this situation. And I think one of the things that we must work towards is making sure we have systems and processes where people fit in within, where people work within a defined system, a defined process. That way, it becomes easier even for anyone else to just come in and fit in because there's a process defined. They are not reinventing the wheel. A lot of times, challenges come because this knowledge is only in Zipporah's mind. If Zipporah leaves today, we're in so much trouble for the next 3 6 months before we settle. It's going to be chaotic, and we need to move away from that. We need to think about how do we make sure there is we have teams that understand different roles within the organization, where you are able to probably transfer staff laterally or across board, and people are able to know how can I do mother's job and how can mother get to know how to do my job. And of course this comes in terms of succession planning. When I'm planning for every position, am I sure that if I lose an employee or two employees, work is going to continue without me running around like a headless chicken trying to figure out how do I serve my customer. Unfortunately, a lot of times as employers, we are caught up in this rat race. When an employee leaves and we are completely stuck, by the time we pick up the pieces, we've lost a client here or the other. So it's important for us as employers to think about succession planning. How do we make sure, we have set systems and processes that people are able to work within. If I'm an employee, on the other hand, I think it's important for me not to be too comfortable and not to sit pretty. It's important for me to advance in terms of my own career progression, in terms of my own career growth. Am I going back to school and advancing my skills? Am I able to work within other departments, or am I stuck? I can only be an HR, and that's the only job that I can do. If today we automate the HR department, then what happens? Does that mean you're going to become extinct? Are you able to move in and be able to take up other responsibilities within the organization? And I think it's important for us to think about it as employees. What are the other plans I have? Am I saving? What am I doing with the money that I'm getting? How am I planning my livelihood? Is my life just, encapsulated within this organization and I can't turn left or right in the event that I was to lose my employment? So I think it's good for us to look at it from different perspectives. And since you've given me a few minutes, there's a lot I can talk about this or on this, but it's important for me to think about how am I handling the opportunities I have as an employee. As an employer, how am I safeguarding the business by making sure if there's an unwanted or unwelcome transition, then how am I going to cushion the business?
Wow, you have really summarized it well, Zippy, from an employee and employer perspective. Martha, what's your view about handling unwelcome workplace transitions?
Succession planning at all levels. Especially if you ever find that you have a staff that you panic even when they go on leave, just know you are walking on hot hot ground, because that person can even take advantage of you because
Yes.
they know that you don't have any other person, and they can
Mhm.
pull the organization backwards. And when they are angry, such people just leave because they know they will mess you up. And because you
Yes.
know that, then you need to have some plan, like a succession plan, that if
Mm.
ZP leaves, this work will not stop. There will be no pressure. So
Mhm.
that is one of the things. And then and other unwelcome transitions, like organizations closing down, like we saw in COVID. Those things, they're inevitable when the acts of God come in. So
Mm.
you must have a business continuity plan. What in
Mm-hmm.
case of this, what can we do? In case of this, what can we do? And you need to check you overhaul your business so that you see how much you can retain and how much you can release, and what you are
Mm.
releasing. Then you need to communicate, and we have talked about communicating. So even if it's
Mm.
short, it has come suddenly, like COVID came, you still
Yes.
have to plan on how you are going to exit some people, or how the organization is closing down. You can't just wake
Mm.
up and not go to work and tell people you're not coming to work. So it has to be like that, because in fact during COVID, we in my organization, because we deal with mental health issues, we got a lot of cases because of the
Mm.
way staff were mishandled. So they went
Mm.
into mental depression and all. So it's good to plan very well, communicate, and have succession planning as much as possible for a member of staff. When transition comes and it's unwanted, what I can say is, don't panic. It's so important to stay positive, because then you can
Mm.
go. You need to
Mm.
stay positive, and at times it's just good to sit back and reflect what just
Mm.
happened, and that may not take one day. You can even engage like LVCT Health, where I work, and you have a debrief with a counselor that this has
Mm.
happened, and so that you need to preempt it. Don't let it
Mm.
stick in your mind, because then it will bring issues. The other thing is, you can reach out to people who have gone through that whole, and how they managed it. I
Mm.
always want to think for people like Tony. You have said these days we don't have those people who are lifelong employees from
Yeah.
24 to 60. It is so important to know that in an organization, if it is not advisable, if you have served 5 to 7 years, what new thing are you going to bring to that organization? The
Mm.
only thing you will do is you keep, once you get 7 years and new people come. And in the Bible, there was a Pharaoh who came who did not know Moses. Yes. So that Pharaoh, when he came, he started punishing the Israelites, because he didn't know
Mm.
where the background of this person. So you can imagine, you have been in these organizations, you have done all the innovations, every system running there, it's you who set it up. But a new
Mm.
Pharaoh came who doesn't even care and doesn't know that. And you know what happens? He sends you home, and you go home bitter, not knowing that this guy doesn't know you. So
Mm.
you need to have a mindset that a Pharaoh can come who doesn't know Moses. And you can imagine that person could be even 10 years younger than you.
Mm.
And now you are thinking, this is even my son who I'm struggling with. So those are the
Yes.
things that you need to think about. And it's okay to start thinking of exiting from 3, 4, 5, 6 years, 7 years. There's nothing new you are really adding to an organization,
Mm.
as far as I'm concerned. All you are doing is, now you have neutralized, and anything you're doing with your closed eyes, because this is what you have been doing all these years. So those are my
Mm.
few additions to what ZP had said. Thank you very much.
And Tony,
Wow.
just before you bring us to a close, let me just say
Yes.
this quickly because it touches on recruitment. The issue of succession planning. When we don't plan well, when we have unwanted or unwelcome exits from employees, and we've
Mm.
not done succession planning, then it has a ripple effect in terms of how we recruit. So what happens? We recruit in a hurry. What happens when we recruit in a hurry? We end up having the wrong people in the job.
Mhm,
We end up
mhm,
having customers who are unsatisfied, customers who are unhappy.
mhm.
We end up having to terminate people because we have put them through PIP and it's not working. We end up into litigation challenges. So I would say the issue of succession planning is so critical. And as SMEs, as business people, we need to take that very seriously.
Ladies, you have really dissected this thing in 35 odd minutes. And this is just scratching the surface. To our viewers and our listeners, who would like to understand how do you handle workplace transitions? Because as you've said, for both the employer, the company, we saw it with COVID-19, and for employees too. This is a topic that we need to look and face squarely face it squarely and have mitigating measures prepared. We've discussed business continuity planning and succession planning. As an employer, for you as an employee, you've gotten this job and you're thriving. Are you putting some money aside for the unexpected? And this is probably a discussion we can discuss some other time, where things like, do you have a 6 months to 1 year saving? Your salary, your 1 month salary saved 6 times. 6 months salary or 1 year salary that can be a cushion for you in case there is the inevitable changes that would find you, out of a job. And before you go to LVCT to tell them, can you give me counseling? You already have a cushion that can give you the adjustments. These are just measures, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to look and see and adjust accordingly. We have come to the end of our podcast today, and indeed, this is a very this is a very interesting conversation. And to you, our viewers and our listeners, you can get in touch with us. You would like to know how our consultants can help you in preparing for transition, for succession planning, for business continuity, for issues regarding how do you exit people, how do you transition people better as a company. We would love to work with you, would love to partner with you. Our contacts are at the bottom of the screen. You can get in touch with us via our website, www.armconsultants.co.ke, via WhatsApp, via LinkedIn, and even via Facebook. We are available. You can always give us a call, and we would love to partner with you. So, having said that, we have come to the end of our podcast today. This election weekend, it's awesome. Things have been flowing well, and our country is going through transition. We are just waiting to see how the transition concludes. And by next weekend, I believe we will have a new chief executive running this country, and that it shall be a smooth transition into the new phase for our nation. So, having said that, ladies, thank you very much for joining with us. Let's meet next Saturday, same time, same place. We discuss part 3 of workplace transitions. Thank you very much.